I just wanted to welcome everybody. This is the first of the committee symposiums. This is to familiarize members of the duties and purposes of our committees. And I want to introduce Dana Murphy, who is our EEC chair, and she will be the host of this symposium.
Thank you, Brenda. I welcome you all and thank you for sharing some of your Saturday morning time with us. Yes, our committee's role is to promote programs and projects and resources that are available to all of us through DKG. Part of our job is to help receive and dispense information that comes from international and then via to the state and then to our local chapters. So we're kind of, it's a big part of what we do is just help to communicate and get information out to you. Today, we're going to start globally, sort of at a global level, and we're going to finish up at a local level. Also, I want you to keep in mind that DKG also supports you in your personal and professional growth. So there's some things, there might be some projects or programs we show that maybe your chapter isn't involved in, but you might have a particular interest. And all of this is on our international website. So we're showing you things, and we'll be showing you, trying to show you places where you can find them also. Let's see. We do have lots of information to share. So as Grace already mentioned, use the chat, ask us questions. That's going to be where we're going to have an opportunity to communicate and get feedback from you, and we look forward to your feedback. Also, we plan on sending out something following this. There's going to be some websites or maybe some contacts on slides, and you might not have time to catch it all with your paper and pencil. Kate even suggested maybe having your phone ready. You could take a shot of that, of the screen. But we will follow up with a list with websites and contacts for you. Okay, and I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Cole. I'm with Alpha. I live in Klamath Falls, and I'm the UN delegate for DKG. And I'm going to touch on two areas of our international work regarding the UN. The first is talking a little bit about a scholarship I received from DKG to attend the 2020 Committee for Teaching about the UN conference in New York. And then the second part is drilling down into the resource that the UN is for teachers and anyone who wants to learn more about global efforts that impact all of us. So with that, I'm ready to roll. Thank you. So as I mentioned before, got to attend what we call the Committee for Teaching on the UN conference in 2020. I was there with Dana Murphy, our EEC chair, and Darlene Cook, who was at that time president of our Oregon State DKG. The conference itself took place on the 28th of February. It was a one-day event. It focused on War No More was the theme. And it really examined the elimination of nuclear weapons and women as peacemakers. And it included such speakers as Cora Weiss from the International Peace Bureau and Gloria Steinem. And for, I'll just say, some of us of a certain age, we would remember that she is and was a very prominent and co-founder of Ms. Magazine, a feminist publication that was the first of its kind. There was also a really neat factor going on during the conference, and that was a college poster contest. And the posters were displayed in color on easels and on boards in the halls of the UN, along with the young people who had created them. And so it was really neat to walk around, speak to the students, look at their posters, and these posters you can find as well on the UN website. Okay, so jumping right into the topic. I really have pondered this essential question. Why teach about the UN? Like, where does that fit in? And I kept thinking, well, we do social studies, we do global studies, but I think the crux of it is that we live in a time where it feels like more than ever, our lives, countries, our futures, they're all tied together on this earth. And we face very similar issues, and we are engaged in very similar struggles, from access to education and clean water to gender equality and the rights of Indigenous people, how to end war, how to respond to climate change. And I think most importantly, the UN brings everyone from around the world around those topics and other relevant and timely topics. And I think that if we think about teaching about the UN, that can be to anyone. I think of it in terms of teaching children and youth, but they do live in this global society. And I think the more that we can bring resources to our existing curricula that help them understand just how interconnected we are, the better we will do. So I'm going to speak just very briefly about the UN as a resource for teachers to expand what they're doing in the classroom. I just wanted to point this out, again, something you can look up on the UN website, but the UN has worked with all of the countries around its tables, and those tables are very, very phenomenal to see in person at the UN. They have worked to develop 17 sustainable development goals, and I really encourage you to get out and take a look at what they are. My slide, unfortunately, is a little blurry, but everything from sustainable cities to responding to poverty to gender inequality. But so please do visit their website to see about that. The UN also provides just excellent teaching resources. And personally, lately, I have been reading a lot about our Indigenous people in the US and in Canada and their experiences being forcibly removed from their homes and put into residential schools. And I have found that there are so many phenomenal resources on the UN website, even for me, to deepen that knowledge. I'm going to highlight, for instance, a resource, refugees. As we see climate refugees, political refugees from all around the world, I wanted to take a look. Well, how would I teach about refugees coming to this country, especially new refugees? We have Haitians coming in. We have so many people from around the world. And I found this lovely resource, again, on the UN website. It will direct you, if you were to follow this link, out to a YouTube channel where you can see this beautifully animated short film that tackles that topic of a child refugee and what that child experienced getting to, in this case, his next home. Beautiful animation, and it's designed for the young child. So it's appropriate for a teacher to be able to show that. As I mentioned, my personal interest, I'm going to touch on another resource that I found very helpful. As I mentioned, the US and Canada and countries around the world are grappling with issues of injustice to their Indigenous people. And that extends everywhere. Well, in 2021, for International Indigenous Peoples Day, the UN put together a convocation of people to speak during the day. And all of that is on their website. And it really spotlighted not only, the plights and the struggles, but also great celebrations and opportunities for coming together around Indigenous issues and celebrating everyone in our country. So I want to circle back with my very funny picture, and that is my last slide of Dana, Darlene, and me at the UN at the end of the day. But I really do want to just finish by saying it has always been a dream of mine to go to the UN, and Darlene Cook knows this. We talked about it for years. And so the opportunity to go to the UN really was fulfilling a dream for me. And that was an honor to be able to go. And then secondly, to be encouraged to apply for a scholarship that made it financially more doable for me. And that's another piece that DKG brought to me. And I want to acknowledge that and remind everybody who's here, that's part of what we do too, is support people in growing personally, professionally, and realizing their dreams. So thank you. With that, I'm going to reintroduce Dana Murphy, our chair of the Educational Excellence Committee, and let her take it from there.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you. Following on the global level, I'm sure many of you have heard of Schools for Africa. This is DKG has been supporting UNICEF projects since 1997, and it was in 2010 that they designated Schools for Africa as the first official international project, and it still continues with us today. When you get onto the website, you would, and I'm sure most of you know that you have to use your membership to sign in to really be able to access a lot of the rich resources as members. But you would go to programs and projects, and then immediately Schools of Africa will pop up. Since 2010, our members have donated over $445,000, saving some of the most disadvantaged children in Africa by helping them receive a quality education. The little bingo game here in the corner I put up because it's just an example of a resource that was on the website. It's all ready to go. It's got these great little questions, you know, how you'd walk around perhaps in a chapter meeting and you wanted to use Schools for Africa or help to educate members about it. And there's little questions like, you know, what does UNICEF stand for? Or how many countries are we supporting in Schools for Africa? And it's just a quick and easy little resource that's there as an example of what's available on the website. On that same page, when you find Schools for Africa, you could then scroll down and you can find a whole list of really good questions about UNICEF. There are 2 UNICEF projects that come up. One of them is, and one of the questions, for example, is how is DKG working with UNICEF USA? And then it goes on to explain some other programs besides School for Africa. How many of you remember the little UNICEF boxes that we used to collect? Again, this might be dating us, but at Halloween time when we go around door to door and collecting pennies, I remember that. It's one of my very first memories of learning about children that weren't as privileged as I was. And as I was collecting my candy to be asking people for pennies that then we would send on to help those other children. This program started in 1950. It is still going. We're not seeing, I mean, traditions have changed. We don't see a lot of trick-or-treaters at our door. And it was in 2006 that they kind of phased out the boxes. I think they realized it was costing them more money to print the boxes than actually the pennies that they were collecting. But on the website, and there's links to it, they still have a website. It's gone digital. You can see high school groups that have service clubs that are raising money and doing some creative different kinds of projects. There's opportunities where you donate online. But still today, Trick or Treat for UNICEF funds go directly to help save children's lives in over 190 countries and territories. It's through immunization, education, healthcare, nutrition, clean water, and sanitation. And DKG is partnering with UNICEF USA for this kind of outreach program. This is another one, and this one's newer. I don't know if many of you have heard about this, but it's called UNICEF Kid Power Ups. And it is a free program. Classrooms are using it, schools are using it, and it's geared for young people, kindergarten through 8th grade. What it's doing, it's got a really sophisticated website, and I encourage you to look at it because it's just kind of amazing. But it's empowering students to make a difference while they're learning about teamwork and empathy and the world around them. And they do this because it's all on the website. There's like over 100 videos of dance and yoga lessons, and then cultural and important messages to our youth about children and in famine and refugees and starving. And so what the kids are doing with their activities is that it's being recorded and they get points. And it's all on the website. I have tapped into some videos and have been dancing around in my dining room. And because I have an account, after my 3 minutes or my 5-minute video, it goes bing, 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 and it gives me points. And what the kids are earning, they're earning digital coins that they can make decisions to go to donate locally. It could be to a local food bank or for some trees in a park. And then they're also, as a group, with their time that they're spending exercising, they are earning ready-to-use therapeutic food packets. And the acronym is RUTFs. Maybe you've heard of RUTFs, but that's what it is. It's this therapeutic food nutritional packet that's going. And all of this is on the websites. They have videos that talks about it. That's all being dispensed by UNICEF. And I did mention that it was free. It's because they have big corporate donations and other nonprofits that are doing this to support. So it's a win-win, because our children in our schools are learning about this empathy and this teamwork and what they can do. And obviously it's benefiting children abroad. The website also has, it shows where, and I have, Oregon has 36 chapters participating. I shouldn't have used the chapters in hindsight for us, because I'm not referring to DKG chapters. What it is, I think it's mostly schools, but I hesitate to say just schools, because I think it also could involve some Girl Scout troops. It could, some different organizations that could be participating. But we have 13, and I think there are 13 schools in Southern Oregon that are participating. They pop up on the map, and 15 around the Salem area. And then I'm in Tigard, and the Tigard-Tualatin School District, and I was kind of looking, and but there's one that I found, and it's Metzger Elementary School, which I'm familiar with, and it actually has 2 different classrooms, and they're challenging each other of who can raise the most. So it's a new program. I think it'd be really fun if some chapters took it on. Like, there's no reason that says we have to be kindergarten through 8th grade. I think the exercise things are kind of fun, and maybe challenge each other and learn about it. But I encourage you to look at this website. It's fun. Along with that, I have the privilege of introducing one of our guests, and I'm calling her a guest because she's not part of our committee, and so we invited her to join us, but she's not a guest to DKG. This is Bertha Haas, and Bertha has actually been in DKG, I think 1977, is that right, Bertha?
Right.
During that time maintained her membership within 3 different chapters with Omicron, IOTA, and now Psi, as she worked and traveled around Oregon. But not only that, Bertha has taught in Germany, and she again maintained her DKG membership and had an opportunity, and I know I don't have all the details right, but at an international conference, she was able to help, I think, promote and share and talk about DKG, just as Germany was starting to inquire and look into the opportunity of that partnership. And then she also has traveled internationally, and she went to teach in Tanzania, and there not only taught, but she started a school, and that's what Bertha's going to share with us today. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dana. And thank you very much for inviting me to share today. It's always a joy and a pleasure to spread good news about Huruma. Huruma Special Unit is a neighborhood school for children with disabilities in Mwanza, Tanzania, East Africa. It provides a free and appropriate education for over 40 students with a variety of disabilities. Without Huruma, the majority of these students would not have any opportunity at all for education. They would be isolated from their peers. They would be denied the right to make valuable contributions to their society. Huruma provides a free and appropriate education, along with life and occupational skills, to students with multiple and severe disabilities. We serve students in and around the Pasiansi neighborhood of Mwanza, usually limited to ages 6 to 14, both in the school and in the home. And we've been doing that since 2004. A quick estimate of the number of students with disabilities that Huruma has served since 2004 is probably somewhere around 400, with about 65 of those still enrolled. So what are some of the challenges, current challenges for Haruma? Most of our students come to Haruma between the ages of 7 and 8. We desperately need a preschool program because we all know that when you're dealing with disabilities, the time to start remediating is as close to birth as possible. A second really large opportunity or challenge is employment for our graduates. Probably the brightest student I have ever taught is still selling peanuts from the home where he lives with his parents. One is selling trees at the family's nursery. One is working in a pizza restaurant. One is going to college, wanting to become a business teacher. But for most of these students, if the family doesn't own a business, it's very difficult to find employment. One new development is this year is that one of our students is going to be enrolled at VEDA. This is the National Vocational Training Institute. I think this is the first ever for a handicapped child. Our current director is very capable. He's a leader committed to developing Haruma to serve students. He's very good at outreach to funding agencies, local and international. From the beginning, Haruma has received funding from Ireland, England, Germany, Switzerland. But funding agencies want to fund sustainable things. Usually by that, they mean buildings or something that's going to last. I served as director for 6 years and then as consultant and support to the director for another 3 years. Since then, my role has been as US fundraiser with a focus on teacher salaries because that's what funding agencies don't want to cover. So we try to cover salaries for one director, 2 retired certified elementary school teachers, 4 certified Montessori teachers, 1 physical therapist who is also Montessori trained, and 5 paraprofessionals. The Tanzanian government provides 1 certified teacher of the deaf and 1 part-time cook assistant. For 3 years, while I was director, Haruma received a Delta Kappa Gamma grant. I think that was the limit available at that time. The 3 Oregon chapters to which I have been a member, Omicron, IOTA, and Psi, have consistently supported Haruma very generously. Our US fundraising efforts consist of building a base of sustaining donors, those who commit to donate on a regular schedule, either monthly, biannually, or annually, an annual Taste of Tanzania, either in person or last year or this year in virtual, sale of Tanzania items, usually made by Haruma staff or parents or friends, a newsletter 4 to 6 times a year. So how can Oregon Delta Kappa Gamma members support Haruma? Number 1, become a sustaining donor. Doesn't matter if it's $25 a month or $300 every March and September or $2,000 annually. The amount is whatever is right for you. It's the consistency that matters. Donations can be made on the website or sent to our local address, which is available on the website. You can organize a local fundraiser, a raffle or yard sale. We can provide brochures, perhaps sale items or raffle prizes. You could accompany me on a trip to Tanzania. At my age, I should probably not be traveling that distance without a companion. So you could maintain our Facebook page. You could help us publicize Taste of Tanzania. You could sign up for our newsletter. All of this information is on the website, which I will put into chat. Any questions that you have can also be put into chat. So thank you very much for your time, your interest, your concern for children with disabilities.
Thank you, Bertha. And then we're going to turn it over to Brenda Kirk.
Hi, my name is Brenda Kirk. I've been a member of the IOTA chapter in Eastern Oregon for 40 years. I currently am the World Fellowship Chair for Oregon DKG. I accepted this position because of the fellowship I have been shown while living with host families in several countries. I have never been to France, so when I hear the word France, I picture the Eiffel Tower. But when I think of a country where I have lived, I envision the faces of the families that hosted me. And this is the power of World Fellowship. You build personal relationships around the world. The World Fellowship program began in 1946. 4 German women educators received funds to study in Sweden. And then in 1952, World Fellowship allied with UNESCO to help Korean women. That would be right after the Korean War. And the present program took shape in 1958-1960 biennium. The Institute of International Education recognized our program with an award in 1978. Applications for study in the US are conducted through a binational selection committee sponsored by the Fulbright Commission, with DKG grants supplementing the stipend. Since 1960, 1,029 women in 122 countries have received awards totaling $3,739,250. And currently this year, there are 19 women who have received $4,000 grants, 4 have received $2,000 extensions, 2 have received $1,000 extensions, for a total of $83,500 to 25 women from 23 countries this biennium. Contributions and bequests determine the number of grants given each year. And so far, DKG members have contributed over $4 million as of June 30th of this year. Now I would like to introduce Jarnell Robinson from Pretoria, South Africa. She's attending the University of Oregon in Portland. She's DKG Oregon's current World Fellowship recipient. Jarnell?
Thank you, Brenda. Good morning, everyone, and good evening to those who are joining us from across the world. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you all today. I'm really honored to share this space with you all. And today, I'd like to just speak to you all about personifying World Fellowship. Great. So as I said, my name is Jarnell Felicity Robinson. I just like to add that my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I added this picture here, land of the free, home of the babes, because I feel like that really summarizes my experience with DKG thus far. Some really passionate, strong, beautiful women that I feel really honored to be surrounded by. So I just wanted to touch on who I am, what I do, and why this matters, basically why I'm giving this talk this morning. So I just wanted to share a bit about myself, put a name to the face of World Fellowship. As I said, my name is Jarnell, I'm 24 years old. I was born in Zimbabwe, however, I was raised and schooled in South Africa. Some aspects of myself you can read there, but what I do want to mention that I feel like shapes who I am is being a sibling, being obviously a child of divorced parents, being colored or mixed race, which is super important for me, and then being first generation. So alongside my sister, we're the first ones in our family to be able to attend higher education in terms of university. And as some of you got to know at the international conference, I have a really big love for high heels. However, when I'm not in any academic attire or running around in stilettos, you'll often find me with a coffee in hand, a book in the other, listening to country music. So I wanted to touch on my academic career, and I say academic because I don't necessarily separate myself from my academics. School is all I've known. So therefore my academics have become a part of who I am, and it really does shape who I am and what I intend to do going forth in my life. So some of my achievements thus far have been my first degree, which was in corporate communication. I then went on to do my honors degree in communication management. And currently now I am doing my master's in communication at the University of Portland. And I am currently working on my thesis, looking at the role of intergenerational family storytelling and activism. So touching on activism, this has been a passion of mine since I've gotten to America, and I've been really, really fortunate to work with an organization called Forward Together Action. And we have been working on passing the Crown Act. The Crown Act in Oregon stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. So we are legalizing protection for natural hair all around Oregon. And part of my work has been testifying in the Oregon Senate. I have done working on communication documents, phone banking, text banking, and we have successfully passed the bill this year. And right now we're in the implementation process to have this bill come into effect in January 2022. So I'm really excited to continue working on that. So briefly, I wanted to touch on how I came into being in the world of DKG. And as Brenda mentioned already, that was through Fulbright. So I'm a Fulbright scholar, and I went through the process of my application, having an interview, some really rigorous tests, and then Fulbright then goes through a process of negotiation to find me a placement in a school in America. And they tried to find the process of the best package, the best fit that I could be in. And this is where DKG came into play. And luckily, not only did DKG find me, but I found a home within DKG. So I received financial assistance from DKG, but more than that, I've received a really great amount of support prior to even arriving in America. When I was still back home studying due to the pandemic, I would receive emails from chapter members checking in on me, seeing how I'm doing, offering me guidance as well. Once I touched down in America, I've received many postcards and gifts and really just amazing opportunities, such as being invited to the international conference where I got to meet everyone and really just learn so much about DKG. But what ties Fulbright and DKG and me all together is a global network. And this is what leads me to talk about World Fellowship and more so Global Fellowship. So when we speak about World Fellowship, mainly it's just thought of as academic or financial assistance. However, I want to take that a step further, and I want to speak about the concept of Global Fellowship. And I found this quote by Henry Churchill King, who says that Global Fellowship is having world vision. It's seeing the world's facts, facing the facts, and honestly reacting upon the facts with a vivid imagination. So this is where I see myself taking what I've learned here back home and taking it further for the rest of my life. When we're talking about fellowship, the root of it is really care. And I feel like that's what I've received from DKG, and that's what I want to impart on those around me. So it's caring, and in order to care, we have to be able to share, whether it's our knowledge or our resources or financial assistance, wherever it may be. So I'd like to take World Fellowship and Global Fellowship and really make it a lifestyle. This touches on what does this mean? Why does this matter? I've included some statistics from my home country of South Africa. So as I mentioned already, I am multiracial, mixed race, colored, however you want to call it. And 4.6% of people in my race back home are enrolled in higher education in terms of university. So to think that of this 4.6%, I'm here in Portland, Oregon, here today is already mind-blowing. And it shows that there's this real serious gap that needs to be addressed. We're seeing continued white male dominance in postgraduate spaces. A real issue back home is unemployment. Youth unemployment specifically is 57.47%. Nationally, we're looking at 34.4% of national unemployment. That is second highest in the world, not third, that was my era. And we're also seeing really high dropout rates in terms of university. And some reasons for this is lack of access, lack of funds, and really struggling to find a community within academia. So I draw on 4 key themes or areas of interest that I commit myself to as I work and continue to go back home after my scholarship. And that is really a commitment to diversity and representation. I had no idea what I was getting into in the world of academia, and I had no role models that looked like me. So I really want to be someone that others can see when they want to go into the world of academia. I also want to talk about equity as well and inclusion. I think that that's really important as well. The stats show that we need that. I also want to speak about youth empowerment, specifically in academia. We spoke about this a lot at the international conference of how we can make DKG chapters and how we can make efforts more dynamic and include the youth more, so that this is really something that's sustainable intergenerationally. And finally, I also want to commit myself to local and global development. And it's been really inspiring to hear all your talks as well, because I see really that there's an opportunity and a need for this development, and knowing that I could potentially play a part is really, really amazing. So I'd like to leave everyone with this quote that says, be stubborn about your goals, but flexible about your methods. So I know that with the continued support with Fulbright, with DKG and all of you at your chapters, I know that we can achieve many great things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jarnell.
Thank you, Jarnell. I'm happy to continue this conversation around our global projects and programs, and start to bring it into more of a national area. And that is the topic is the US Forum, our National Legislative Seminar. And so my name is Kate Kelleher. I'm a member of Beta Beta chapter, and I think I've been a member for over 20 years now. And I just want to take a moment to thank Darlene Cook and Dana Murphy, who really have partnered with me around this area of the US Forum. Darlene started talking to Dana and I about this when we were co-presidents quite a few years ago. We were co-presidents of Beta Beta chapter, and I remember having a conversation with her when we were down in Southern Oregon, and really starting to think about joining in with this US Forum. And so at this point, Grace, I think I'm ready for my first slide. And I know Dana's going to join in here also, but I'll get us started. I did want to share right away the purpose of the US Forum. And you can see it here. It's very exciting to be with other Delta Kappa Gamma members from all over the United States, gathering in Washington, DC, learning about issues that specifically affect women, children, and education. And to be there, you can see it was kind of a cloudy, gray, cold day a couple years ago when we were there, but let me tell you, we arrived with a whole lot of energy. There are actually 4 different forums within DKG, and they're listed here for you. Dana, thank you for posting that picture.
I found it.
Yay. And it was just so exciting because, of course, the national forum trickles down into our state legislation. And so there's a lot of affiliation between specific states and then also the national forums. And Dana and I have participated in the US forum, as well as Darlene.
Yeah, and Kate, I'll just add, these 2 pictures are of the Oregon Legislative Day that Kate and I were involved in planning. And I think it's because we had the opportunity to go to the National Legislative Seminar, which will come up on another slide, but it's sort of an example of some of what we were empowered to do and learn to do. So go on, Kate.
Yes. And so I just want to remind everybody, you're already members of the US Forum because all DKG members are. And so Dana was speaking about these pictures and the fact that we did have our Oregon Legislative Day. And for those of you that participated, hopefully you're smiling and you remember some happy memories of that day when we descended upon our own state capital on April 5th. We actually spoke with the governor, and here is our proclamation, Delta Kappa Gamma Day, that she did proclaim. And it was just a really great experience to get into our state legislature and to be able to go and speak to our specific representatives, whether they were in the Senate or the House at the time. Some members contacted them ahead of time to set up appointments. And that's what Dana and Darlene and I did at the national level when we were in Washington, DC. And it was very exciting. The one that was a standout for me was Representative Suzanne Bonamici. She happens to be our representative from where I live now, as well as Tigard, Tualatin, and Sherwood School District, which Beta Beta chapter represents. And so it was very important for me to be able to connect with her and talk about a number of issues. And hopefully you have followed some of her work in the
as time has continued. She has a great Facebook page and also other information. We did meet with Representative Walden's associate. He was not available because he was in meetings the day that we were there on the Hill in DC. But it was really great to be with his associate, because the representative that represents, I mean, it's almost half our state when you look at how Oregon is divided into now 6 districts. And so he has a new representative there, but at the time it was Senator Walden. So these are some of the major issues that our U.S. Forum is looking at in regards to education. And if you're following the congressional bills at all, you can see that these are representative in the current legislation that Congress is working on right now. I don't want to go ahead and read them out loud to you because you can read them yourself. But I do love this idea that extracurricular activities were included. And even at the elementary level, where most of my work was, having opportunities for children to practice social and emotional skills is so important, especially after these last 18 months when we've all gotten a bit rusty, not just the kids. And of course, one of the huge issues that that Representative Bonamici is very clear about is childcare, affordability, and access. And I'm sure you've heard that come up again and again in the news. If we want to get people back to work, we have to make sure that childcare is available. So here we are, and our picture is actually at Representative Bonamici's office a few years ago when we were there. And I want to turn this over to Dana.
Thanks, Kate. And yes, as Kate said, this just was an extraordinary experience to be able to do this. I was reflecting, our daughter graduated from American University in Washington, D.C. And so I've had opportunities to go to Washington, D.C. We would go, we would visit, we would take some tours. But these few days that we spent here, I learned so much. And I have so many just like really strong, good memories about it. And you can see in the 3 days, they had knowledgeable speakers. They brought in just people that were kind of similar to this kind of situation that we're doing. We just had speaker after speaker working on really big projects or having lots of information. And we were frantically taking notes and taking it all in. And we were told to make appointments with our leaders to see if we could get in, weeks ahead of time. So we were like being prepped. We were being given information. I remember being so nervous, like walking into these offices and trying to practice. What am I going to say? How am I going to introduce? I mean, it's a big deal. And then spending the day on Capitol Hill, touring Washington, D.C. There are optional tours when the National Legislative Seminar, DKG sets these tours up, and you can choose to go on them if you want to or not. But we saw lots of things that I had never seen before and had the opportunity to enjoy. And then, of course, meeting friends from all over. So we would encourage you, put this date on your calendar. It's coming up in March of 2022. We will hope that, that we will be able to be there in person. So I encourage you to look into this more and consider it.
Yes, and the last thing I want to say about it is many thanks to our state organization, because again, we were able to get scholarships, both Dana and I, in order to help make this trip more affordable. And we're planning to go.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you're interested in joining us in March, please send us an email, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get more Oregon representation there with us, but we're planning to go, and we're hopeful that it's going to be in person in March.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I think I go ahead and turn it over back to Jen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hello again. So I am going to speak a little bit about supporting early educators, and it's something I'm very passionate about. I put together just a few slides, but I'll just reintroduce myself, adding to what I said before, that my work is as a full-time new teacher mentor at the secondary level. And I work with a very experienced elementary teacher who is in the role of the elementary mentor. And in this time of teacher shortages, a changing educational world in light of the global pandemic and the unique challenges to having to be able to teach both in the classroom and virtually and pivot back and forth. And I've really come to hate that word pivot, because I think in last year, I think we went through 9 different iterations of the Oregon Department of Education's was called Ready Schools, Safe Learners guidance. So we've seen a lot of change coming, and it's here. I work for Klamath County School District, and we hired over 60 teachers this year in our district that serves 7,000 students. And 40 of those teachers are 0 to 1 year's experience. So my colleague Stacy Johnson has 21 new teachers on her caseload. I have 20, and we have designed a pretty unique schedule to try to see those teachers every 3 weeks, which isn't ideal, but it's better than the alternative. Normally we like to do every other week, but we are seeing them every 3 weeks and then reserving a week to provide resources. I wanted to let you know that this project, or this mentoring collaborative, really came out of a grant with Southern Oregon Educational Service District a number of years ago. That later became an ODE grant. Those grants have gone away. We continue the partnership with Southern Oregon ESD because that lets us be part of a professional learning community. They bring us some wonderful resources. In fact, I'm going to be able to participate in a half day of learning with Elena Aguiar, a very well-known, one of the very best known trainers in transformational coaching. So they bring us some wonderful resources, and we continue to partner. So I've taken some of my material from the slideshow that we showed our new teachers at the beginning of the year, but I want to stress that in our model of mentoring, we really focus on being the trusted collaborator, being flexible. We focus heavily on strategies for listening and questioning. We will guide and advise and lead by example, but really our focus is on every new teacher and identifying where it is they want to go and supporting them to get there. We can provide observations, we can provide learning labs where we perhaps model a strategy, although I'll be candid, I don't like to step in place of any teacher. I haven't seen that be as effective as I would have hoped. And by that, I mean that it is the teacher space that we're coming into. And I want to find out how to support my new teachers and bring them resources and then give them feedback. I don't ever want to step into their shoes in front of their students and appear that I know something more than they do. I don't know their students, they do. But more than anything, we want these new teachers to know that we are a confidential collaborator. We don't speak to their principals about them. Their principals can speak to us about their new teachers and what they'd like to see us do with them. But it is not our job to ever speak about the work we're doing with a new teacher to the administrator. We can provide observations. We can go out and observe other teachers. I have a wonderful camera robot. I can record them for them to look at and reflect on. I can find out what's going on even in their personal lives and try to support there. But it really is about them and what they need. So our work is research-based. It's ongoing. It's job embedded. We go out into their prep periods at the secondary level. I meet with them face-to-face. I take notes. I follow up on any resources they need. I encourage them to figure out what's happening. And often I'll walk alongside them and do that too. And ask them, I wonder what would happen if, or I wonder why. I wonder what you know about this student. And we want to accelerate their growth. We are not evaluative in any way. And in fact, when I finish my work with a new teacher, be it 1 year or 2, I give them all the paper I have on them in their file. And then I send them everything I have digitally, and then I delete them from my system, because it's not their property. And the district supports that 100%, as in fact, they support my colleague Stacy and I in terms of our employment. We are teachers. We're teachers on special assignment, and we are what is called full release. And that means our job is to be out in the field with teachers. I wanted to share this with you because it's so timely. And so I met, if you would please pay attention to where my graph says anticipation. I am telling my teachers now as I go out into the field, that's where I met you. I met you right there at the New Teacher Academy. And then if you follow that line, oh, here we are in October. And then I show them and I say, I don't want to pre-frame you in any way to go somewhere that you're not headed, but I just want you to know we're headed downhill. We know that the days are getting shorter. It's getting darker. We're getting tired. We've already done 4 weeks of school. And in these times, especially, I have 2 teachers out on quarantine. I'm on standby to substitute teach on Monday so we can keep schools open. And these are the days that they will begin to say, what have I done? Why did I think this was a good idea? And if we can just get them to January, thank you, is that Grace following along? If I can just get them to January, then they come back and they go, you know what? It's January already. I can do this. And in fact, I've got some new ideas. And then finally they can finish the year. And as I recall saying in my past, I'm going to throw all this out and start over. And that drives home that a key part of what we're doing is trying to retain teachers as well, to continue to hire and train and coach is a lot of time and expense. And we want to form excellent teachers. We want to help them teach with equity in mind. We want to reach all of our students and we want to keep them. So I just thought I would show you the notes we took. In terms of our teachers on August 23rd, these were some of their thoughts. Some, disbelief, some frustration. Someone was teaching at their old school. They were excited. They're grateful they have jobs. Some are already saying, I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed here and I want to be creative. One teacher said, I feel kind of like a fraud, like I don't belong here. And others that they have unlimited potential. Their words of where they'd like to be when they are a veteran teacher. And I just thought that was very impactful, confident. They want to have a sense of accomplishment. They want to be open. They want to have that passion for kids, be lifelong learners, and so forth. And just a kind of an overall reflection. Why is this mentoring important? Why are we investing what ends up being well over $100,000 for the salary of one mentor? I'm partly in a grant and partly in the general fund. So honestly, 200,000 easily in salaries when you take into account benefits. But it's important because we know that they need the support. Teaching is lonely. They need that professional development, and we bring them opportunities and we provide different trainings to them. I have one coming up in late October or early November on meeting the needs of students with individual education plans. That's one of my colleagues is helping me put together, and she's in special education. We know that teachers leave the field at alarming rates, especially right now. We are in a teacher shortage again, and we want to retain those teachers. And so that's why we do what we do. And I have to say, for any teacher who can move into a mentoring role in their career, I think I have the best job in our district. And I have told my boss, I might be the happiest employee in the district right now. So with that, I wanted to give you just a little look into the local level and what we're doing for our teachers. So I'll turn it back over to Dana, and thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And what Jen is doing in her job, this whole agenda about supporting early education, early career educators, it's a big program that DKG is really involved in too. So I thank you so much, Jen, for sharing. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the personal and professional growth, although obviously Jen started that out with professional growth with our new teachers. And DKG and our committee is also here to help support the arts. And it's something to support them among our members, to look for creatives within our friends and our chapters. And if you've been again on the international website, this art gallery, the framed piece, this comes up right in the front when you open up. There is an art gallery. It is called a fine arts gallery. They have extended it to include all of these different components, such as mixed media, crafts. I've seen quilts on there. There's writing, there's photography, of course. And then the one of the new extensions, I think, is the videos, and which includes music also. So thinking about things that documentaries that are being made, I mean, all kinds of things. It's very diverse. There are 2 times where you can submit things for this gallery. On the website, if you were to go again to DKG, again, you would have your membership in there because this is for members. You would go to About Us and you'd look under committees. And there you would find the Arts and Humanities Jury. And there it's very detailed of how you submit your work. I wasn't very familiar with this. I had not done this before, but I thought if I was going to talk about it, I should try to get on to the website and try it. And I was still within the period, one of the submission periods. So I had a couple of very small little weavings that I had. They were actually samples that I made for projects that I had taught with students before, but I had them and I followed the directions of taking photographs. It was very detailed. I wasn't quite sure I had done it correctly, but if you are interested in doing this, I now have this experience and I'd be happy to coach you along because I did learn some things. Now I haven't heard yet whether it's being accepted, but I'll let you know if it gets in. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to share that's available to us. I don't know if you all realize, but DKG also has a book club. And again, here are directions. It's on the website. You would sign in. You go to My DKG tab, and it's under communities. And then you can select the book club. They really want people to be interacting with this. They want, you can't all get together because this is, international book club, but they encourage people to subscribe and write topics to share with others and to post. And when you find that section of communities, it's another interesting thing. Just about anything you would be interested in about DKG has its own community. Like there's a community for World Fellowship. There's a community for EEC members. There's a community for the book club. There's just all kinds of things so that if it's a particular interest of yours, you can have that dialogue with members in many different states. There also is an Educators Book Award that is awarded annually. And this committee recognizes women authors whose educational research and writing potentially impact the thoughts and actions of today's complex society. So these books that they're looking for have a lot of research behind them. This particular book for the 21 winner was Trauma Doesn't Stop at the School Door. It's about strategies and solutions for educators and pre-K college. And so that's just an example. And the society presents $2,500 to these authors. So if you know of someone that's writing a book, if you are writing a book, you can encourage them to submit. They need to submit. You need to apply for it. And if this is just to bring this to your attention here. 2 things on this slide. They just announced the DKG Ignite Leaders Empowering Leaders. And some of you may be familiar with this being under the Golden Gift Fund. That's how it's funded, is that committee. There were 20 women. They're coming from 5 of our member countries. Most of them are from the United States, but there are 4 others that are from other countries. And they will have the opportunity to participate in an intensive week of leadership, management, development. This is something that you can apply for. And so it's something for it to be on everyone's radar screen. And it's just another thing that we can take advantage of. And then the last thing on this is there is a new Girl Scout DKG patch that's available. This is a pilot program. It's pretty new. It was started by the Zeta Beta chapter in San Antonio, Texas. They have done it. They were involved with 2 different Girl Scout troops. It is a patch and not an official Girl Scout badge. The curriculum is provided. If we had a chapter that was interested in doing this and or an individual, we would be contributing to the data that they're trying to collect on this program because it's so new. I looked at some of it and it's about leadership. It's about women in history. And they compare our founders of DKG, and they had the girls compare it to the founders of Girl Scouts. And it's really cool, and lots of different choices. And then also it's at a point where it can be edited to be done locally. I will share that this picture of this brownie troop over in the lower right corner, that was my brownie troop that I led. My daughter's in there, and I'm interested in this. So if any of you are interested or has a chapter that might be interested, I'd like to be involved. I just recently contacted a young teacher friend that I have who has a daughter in Girl Scouts, and they're interested. And I just think it's just kind of a special opportunity. Oh, and one other thing about the Girl Scouts and some of these other things that we've been talking about today, that's another thing that we're hearing from international, is that they want us to be partnering with other organizations. AAUW comes to mind. There are so many other groups that we can support, and we can benefit from their support also, just in the way that our chapters can share all this information with each other and stuff and learn from each other. So I just wanted to put that in. I think Girl Scouting would be a fun project. Kate, I think we're ready for you.
Awesome. So you can see that at the beginning of our presentation, we started off with global projects and programs, and we just keep bringing it down and narrowing it into more local and personal issues. And certainly to talk about local legislative issues would be important. And some of you know that's been a passion of mine for years. I started working with OEA as a young teacher in the early 80s and have continued to have leadership roles throughout my years working for Sherwood School District in their local union representation and with OEA. And I feel just such a sense of honor to be able to the legislative liaison for our state chapter. I've tried to keep everybody informed with information on the trail that we've got currently when our legislature is in session. And up until last year, if you've ever been to our state legislature, you know there's no locks on the doors, there's no security that you have to pass through. It's a pretty open atmosphere there. And over the past year, there were some reasons that things have changed. But my goal today is to really help keep it somewhat local into what's going on around you and your legislative topics in your current area. One of the big things that affects us as a state is this idea of redistricting. Some of you have probably heard in the news how fast our state has been growing, and primarily it's taking place in the Portland metropolitan area. Just again, a reminder that at the state level, as well as at the congressional level, DKG is nonpartisan. So there are some strong personalities within our state chapter, as well as within our local chapters, that feel a partisan passion. I get it, but I'm going to be talking to you in a nonpartisan way. And redistricting is one of those things where I'm sure you've all heard that term gerrymandering, and you can look up its history yourself on Google. And this is something that's gone on for a while. And so we have just gotten a new seat due to the 2020 census. And what that means is it means we'll add a legislative seat so that we'll have 61 districts around the state. Then we'll also add a congressional seat, which will bring us to 6 instead of 5 congressional seats. So you can imagine in this partisan time, especially in our state, there was a lot of discussion around who said what and who did what, and this was fair, this wasn't fair, and all kinds of comments on the continuum. But here's the facts. They passed a joint agreement on September 27th. That was their deadline. They were able to come together. I put a quote from the governor here because in the past, this has had to be decided by the Secretary of State and a panel of judges. And so that's what happens if the legislature can't agree on the redistricting map. Thankfully, this year, even with all the disagreement, there did come agreement. And in a year and a half, when we have a long session at the legislature, the topic about how this is done is going to come up. And so if you're really interested in this, Washington State has a committee look at this issue of redistricting in their state. And so it appears that our state is going to start looking at having a different way of creating a redistricting map that may come to all of us. We may get to vote on that when we get back to a long session. Just to keep that in your ear as you're hearing about different things regarding redistricting. So hooray for us. We have 6 representatives in Congress and 61 at the state level. One of the things that's happened all around the country has to do with school boards. So I wanted to make sure that I took a minute to just talk about some facts about school boards. And I'm just going to share here that I actually live in Newburgh. And you've probably heard about our school board on the news. I don't know how you could miss it. It's been kind of all over the place. But here are some facts about school boards. It is really interesting as a leader in a school district to get to know your different school board members. And I would encourage everyone to at least get on your local school board site so that you can know who they are, because they're volunteers. This is not a paid position. And one of the things that came up in the last, this past spring, when so many school board members were being elected, is suddenly political groups were getting very involved in funding for certain candidates. And so in May, there were a lot of contentious school board elections, depending on how you feel about that. And I've listed some of the hot topics there, which is absolutely a no duh for any of us who are educators. These new school board members actually took office July 1st, and right away, bing, bam, boom, things started to happen. Just after many school boards, new school boards came into their role, things started to happen that seemed to have a political agenda. So right away, and please feel free to Google more information if you want it, Albany's superintendent, who happens to be a personal, she's a person that I actually know in education, Melissa Goff. So in May of that year of 2021, Melissa was given an extended contract. She was given a raise. She was given a lot of praise by the existing school board. The election came, July 1st came, and shortly after that, she was fired. Melissa is quoted as saying that she just felt that there were differing opinions around issues of equity in the Albany education system. So she didn't that was her global way of talking about her firing. And what's even more interesting about this topic is that Melissa used to work in Sherwood. She was our curriculum director for a few years when Rob Saxton was our superintendent. Rob Saxton went on to become Tiger Tualatin's superintendent. And then our state, he was our last state school superintendent. Believe it or not, Albany School District has hired him to be Melissa's replacement. It's an interim superintendent position. So my guess is we'll be hearing more about Albany. And if any of your chapters are in the Albany area, it might be something you want to go back and pay attention to. Our Eastern Oregon friends had a difficult firing in Kevin Purnell. He was Adrian's superintendent. A lot of emotion around Kevin. Kevin was not a new member to the area in education over in Adrian, had been working in the district for over 15 years, superintendent for a few years. Articles about this situation talked about the mask mandates that of course have come down from the governor, and just two very difficult situations there with firing of superintendents. Tiger Tualatin, it's been reported to me by a number of members who have gone on and watched those virtual meetings, that they're just, I don't know, it's like the lid on public dissertation or a polite way to disagree seems to have left the building. And then we have Newburgh, my home here. And the update is when I created the slide, the school board was considering a policy that would ban staff from displaying Black Lives Matter and Pride clothes and flags in the public schools. Well, they actually voted to ban it. And so I would encourage you to look at the updates that are occurring now as sport teams are playing Newburgh teams. And even Tiger Tualatin had some interesting things occur. I know just last night, this morning, when I woke up, I put on the news for a few minutes early this morning, and the Sherwood and Newburgh played last night, and Sherwood asked everyone to wear clothes and colors in support of solidarity for Newburgh students. And that seems to be where the issue lies, is that at this point, this is a policy that will ban staff. So things are heating up in our school boards, and remembering that these are volunteers who are sitting on these positions, and that you can email them, contact them, please, because this is the really important piece to me, is what can you do locally? In my town, there has been a Facebook group started just to talk about what's happening with the school board issues. And one of my friends, who is still a teacher here, invited me to join that. So that's just a personal aside. But you can attend their meetings. Most school board meetings are virtual, and some of them have been recorded. So you can actually go back and look at other meetings. You can read through their previous minutes. These are public documents. So please, if you feel like you want to be informed at what issues are coming up for your school board, please do. Please, to speak up for what you believe in. Many of us that are retired have nothing to lose. We know that our colleagues who are still working could have something to lose. And I don't know about you, but I had some interesting times with superintendents where I would leave a school board meeting at 2 a.m. and have to be back in my classroom at 7:30 the next morning, ready for students. And who came walking in the door at 5 after 8? The superintendent, just to say hi, which I thought was kind of an intimidation factor back in the day. But I would encourage all of us to think about what we can do, even if all we can do is to present ideas in a polite, nonpartisan way. If we attend a school board meeting, to model that we don't have to be aggressive or make things personal. And of course, the biggest issue that we can all continue to do in our society is to vote. So I encourage you to take a look at what's going on at your local level with your school board and think about what your part can be. I've seen some interesting comments in the chat. Thank you for that. And on that note, I will go ahead and turn this back over to Dana, our host. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I want to check in with Marie and see if there are some questions that we could address. We've got a few minutes left. Marie?
Let's see. There are several very valuable comments. There was a question, is Klamath Falls using student teachers in full-time positions during the teacher shortage? And this was addressed to everyone, but it followed what Jennifer had been saying.
I will tell you that that is quickly becoming the norm. In fact, even more so, the norm is becoming that we are hiring people with bachelor's degrees. We are putting them into classrooms. And by spring, so I'm just going to say, if that were your situation, you would go in with a restricted license or conditional license. By spring of 2022, you would need to be enrolled in a master's program, and then you would have 2 years to finish it to achieve full licensure to retain your job. And so you can imagine the pressure, multiple pressures on young teachers who have never been in a classroom, number one. Now they are trying to learn how to lesson plan, classroom manage, all of these things. And they need to quickly investigate a program they can get into to get that master's taken care of. That said, I will throw out there that new teachers this year can receive up to $3,000 in support for their education. And we hope that that program will be moving forward. And that's dependent on tax law, to be honest. But yeah, we're using people who've never been in classrooms before. Lots of them.
Okay, it isn't exactly a question, but Priscilla Ing suggested that chapters might want to cooperate with the League of Women Voters because they have much to offer in some of the things that have been discussed under our legislative heading. And that is actually all we have in the way of questions or comments that might need to be shared now.
Well, then I just want to say thank you to everybody. I want to thank my committee. This is the second time that I've gone through having the opportunity to listen to them. And I am just as wowed as I was when we practiced on Monday night. DKG just has so much to offer us. And I appreciate us having the opportunity to go through it like this and just look at all of the, to remind us of all of the opportunities that we have. We don't expect any chapter to do all of these things, right? But there's such a diversity that we can choose from and things that we can dabble in that it's good to see that and be reminded of that. I hope that you've got some takeaways. I hope that you'll get onto the website and look into many of these topics a little deeper. If questions do come up, please, you can contact us, afterwards. Grace, if you want to put my last slide up.
Sure.
It's just kind of the opportunity to think about this complicated web that we have with Educational Excellence Committee. These are all the things that we're tuned into. And it's certainly not that we know everything, but if you have questions or need resources, we're here to help you. I, of course, want to thank my whole committee. I want to thank our guests that joined us. And then behind the screens, Grace, we thank you for all your time. collecting all of our slides and getting it together for us. And Marie, thank you for doing some editing for us and following the chat line. Bonita was very busy with the registration, with pre-registration, and I thank our president, Brenda. She was the one that gave us the initial idea to hold something like this. So thank you all. And I think we made it within our time.
And I would like to say one thing. This is Brenda Jensen. I want to thank Dana. Oh my gosh, she put so much time and energy to put on this. It turned out wonderful. And I know she was worried and she did a fantastic job, and the panel did a marvelous job. And I want to thank each and one of you for being involved and part of this committee. So thank you.
Thank you.
And hi, this is Kate. I just have a closing remark. I put it in the chat, but I just want to remind everyone that this has been recorded, and everybody's spoken about the valuable information. And I know I have the names of a few prospective members that I was thinking about that may have the time to take a look at this, that did not have a Saturday morning available. They were out on the sports field with their kids, or have taken the weekend at the coast, or, you know, something, since this is just such a beautiful day ahead. But I just wanted to remind you, there's a lot here you could use for chapter programs. We just want to continue to get our Educational Excellence Committee information in the hands of our DKG sisters, and build activity and involvement with those topics. And so Dana, thank you so much for your leadership on this topic. And I hope everybody can share it, at least with one. Just think about one person you could share it with. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay.